Parents favored golden sister, I got scraps. Her life imploded, now they expect me to bail them out after neglect. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thank you very much. Now let's begin the video. So since some of you have requested the complete tale, I guess I should start at the beginning. This is going to be long, but whatever. Okay Reddit, buckle up because this is a long one, decades in the making really. I am Chloe, I am 28 years old, female. My sister, let's call her Penelope, is 30. Our parents are Donna and Roy, both in their late 50s now. I also have a wonderful partner, Ethan 30M, who has been my rock through much of the recent drama. He is important to this story because honestly, without him, I might not have had the strength to do what I did. Some of my friends might recognize parts of this, but I have changed some details for privacy, you know how it is. So the theme here is the classic golden child and scapegoat dynamic. Guess which one I was? Hint. It was not the one getting ponies for birthdays while the other got sensible sweaters. From as early as I can remember, Penelope was the sun, moon, and stars in my parents' eyes. She was naturally bright, outgoing, conventionally pretty, everything they seemed to want in a daughter. I was quieter, more introverted, struggled a bit more in school initially though I eventually excelled, and apparently just not shiny enough. Let me give you some examples from the scrapbook of my less than stellar childhood memories. Birthdays, Penelope's were always huge affairs. Themed parties, dozens of friends, bouncy castles, elaborate cakes, and piles of expensive presents. My birthdays. Usually a small family dinner, maybe a cake from the supermarket, and one or two modest gifts, often practical things like clothes or school supplies. One year, for her 10th birthday, she got a horse riding camp experience that cost a fortune. For my 10th birthday a couple of years later, I got a book token and a lecture about being more grateful. The disparity was blatant. School was another battleground. Penelope would bring home an A-, and there would be celebrations, praise, maybe even a reward. I would bring home an A+ after studying my butt off, and my mom would ask if Penelope also got an A+, or worse, point out a minor spelling mistake on the paper. It was like my achievements didn't count, unless they somehow reflected well on Penelope or unless I could surpass her in a way that was undeniable, which rarely happened in their eyes. They paid for expensive tutors for Penelope if she struggled even slightly, while I was told to just try harder or figure it out myself when I needed help. Chores? Oh please. Penelope was apparently too delicate or too busy with her important social life or extracurriculars, which parents happily funded to be burdened with mundane tasks. I was the designated dishwasher, laundry folder, lawn mower helper, you name it. If I complained, I was accused of being lazy or jealous. Jealous. Yeah, maybe a little. Who would not be when one sibling is treated like visiting royalty and the other like unpaid household staff? This pattern continued into our teenage years and early adulthood. University was a big one. My parents paid for Penelope's entire undergraduate degree, including her accommodation in a fancy apartment near campus, her living expenses, even a car. They cautioned loans for her master's degree later on. For me. They offered minimal help. They said finances were tight, that I needed to learn the value of hard work. So I worked multiple part-time jobs throughout my degree, took out significant student loans, lived in cheap shared housing, and scrimped and saved for everything. The irony was not lost on me when I would see Penelope posting pictures of her lavish spring break trips funded by the bank of mom and dad, while I was working extra shifts to afford textbooks. It was infuriating, but I just learned to rely on myself. Penelope, bless her heart, developed a certain expectation of how the world should treat her. Because mom and dad always smoothed things over, paid her bills, bailaid her out of minor scrapes, she never really learned consequences. She floated through life on a cloud of parental support and adoration. She had a string of jobs after her master's, none lasting more than a year. She would quit because the boss was mean, or the work was boring, or it was not fulfilling her creative potential. And each time mom and dad would sigh sympathetically, tell her she deserved better, and support her financially until the next opportunity, or whim, came along. They even funded a couple of her ill-fated business ventures. First a boutique selling imported scarves which folded in 6 months. then an artisanal candle-making business run out of her apartment that mostly just made the apartment smell weird and cost them thousands in supplies. Meanwhile, I was plugging away. After university, I got an entry-level job in my field. It was not glamorous, and the pay was not great initially, but I worked incredibly hard. I climbed the ladder slowly but surely. I met Ethan during this time, and his stable, supportive, normal family was like a breath of fresh air. Seeing how his parents treated him and his siblings equally, celebrated their successes genuinely, and offered support without favoritism was eye-opening. It made me realize just how messed up my own family dynamic was. Ethan saw it too. He was always supportive but careful not to overstep, mostly just listening when I needed to vent and validating my feelings. He often commented on how unfair the situation seemed whenever we had dealings with my family. The real tipping point came about 2 years ago, around late 2022. Ethan and I had been saving diligently for years to buy our first home. We live in an area with a ridiculously high cost of living, and even with good jobs and frugal habits, scraping together a down payment was a monumental task. We finally found a small starter home that was perfect for us, but we were just short of the down payment amount needed to avoid a hefty mortgage insurance premium. It was about $20,000 short. We debated for weeks whether to even ask my parents. I felt sick at the thought. I knew what the likely answer would be, or worse, the conditional offer laced with guilt trips. But Ethan gently encouraged me, saying it was worth a try, that maybe they would surprise me this time. Oh, how naive we were. I called my mom, explained the situation, emphasizing how hard we had worked and saved, how much this house meant to us. The silence on the other end was heavy. Then came the sigh. "Oh, Chloe, that is a lot of money. Your father and I are not made of money, you know. Things are tight right now. Maybe you should look for something smaller or wait another year. Have you considered getting a second job, all the greatest hits?" I pushed back gently at first. "Mom, we have been saving for 5 years. This house is already small. Waiting another year means prices could go up even more. We just need a little help to get over this final hurdle." Then came the kicker. "Well, Chloe," she said, her voice shifting into that familiar tone of martyrdom mixed with justification. "We just gave Penelope $30,000 to help her launch her new online coaching business. You know how passionate she is about wellness influencing. We really believe in her this time. So, money is extremely tight. We might be able to lend you maybe $2,000, but you would have to pay it back with interest, of course. We need to be fair." The word hung in the air like a bad smell. $30,000 for Penelope's latest pipe dream business venture after multiple failures, while her sister, who had worked tirelessly and responsibly, gets offered a pittance with strings attached. I felt a white-hot rage build inside me, something that had been simmering for 28 years. I managed to keep my voice relatively calm, though it trembled. "Mom," I said, "are you actually hearing yourself? You just gave Penelope $30,000, no strings attached, I am guessing, for another business that will probably fail within a year, based on her track record. And you are offering Ethan and me $2,000 as a loan with interest to help us buy a home we have busted our asses saving for. How is that fair? How has any of this ever been fair?" My mom got defensive immediately. "Do not use that tone with me, Chloe. Penelope needed that money. Her business is going to be very successful, you will see. You are just jealous of your sister's ambition. You have always been jealous. Maybe if you were more supportive of her, things would be different. And besides, you and Ethan both have good jobs you can manage on your own. You need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. I almost laughed. Learn to stand on my own 2 feet. That is literally all I have ever done. Because you and Dad made damn sure I had to. While you were busy propping up Penelope every step of the way. The conversation devolved from there. Tears were shed, mine, mostly from rage and hurt. Accusations were thrown, hers, mostly about my attitude and lack of gratitude. I eventually just hung up, shaking. Ethan held me while I cried, not saying much, just being there. He simply said, "I am so sorry, Chloe. You do not deserve this." That conversation was the straw that broke the camel's back. Something inside me snapped. I realized that I would never get the approval, support, or fair treatment I craved from my parents. Their loyalty was solely to Penelope, the designated golden child, and I was done playing the game. I was done hoping they would change. I was done being the bigger person. Ethan and I managed to scrape together the remaining money for the down payment ourselves. We cut back even more drastically. Ethan picked up some freelance work, and I sold some stocks I had been carefully investing since my first job. It was incredibly stressful, but we did it. We bought our house. Without a dime from my parents. We closed in early 2023. We sent out a generic moving announcement email. My parents sent a curt reply saying, "Congratulations, hope you are happy." No offer to help move, no housewarming gift, nothing. Penelope sent a text message a week later saying congrats on the house, with a link to her new coaching website asking me to share it on my social media. The audacity was breathtaking. I ignored it. Around the same time, I got a significant promotion at work. It came with a hefty raise and much more responsibility. Ethan was thrilled for me. I told my parents the news during a brief, awkward phone call. My dad's only response was, "Oh, that is nice. Is the commute longer?" My mom asked if my new salary was more than Penelope was making from her coaching business yet. I swear, I cannot make this stuff up. I just gave non-committal answers and ended the call quickly. For the next year or so, I went low contact with my family. Not completely no contact, but very, very low. I kept conversations brief and superficial. I stopped sharing personal news, good or bad. I declined invitations to family dinners or events if I suspected Penelope would be holding court, and I would be expected to either fawn over her or be ignored. Ethan supported my decision. He saw how much healthier and happier I was becoming without the constant low-grade stress and disappointment of dealing with them. My therapist, who I started seeing after the house buying debacle, called it setting healthy boundaries. I called it saving my sanity. Life continued. Ethan and I settled into our home. We worked hard, enjoyed our life together, traveled a bit, nurtured our friendships. I excelled in my new role at work. For the first time in my life, I felt truly independent in content, building a life based on my own merits and choices, not in reaction to my family's dysfunction. Then, about 6 months ago, the inevitable happened. I started hearing whispers through the grapevine, mostly my poor aunt who is often stuck in the middle, that Penelope's coaching business was not exactly taking off. Shocking, I know. Apparently, spending $30,000 on a fancy website, professional photo shoots, and inspirational quote graphics does not automatically translate into paying clients, especially when your only qualification is having taken a weekend workshop on mindfulness. The whispers turned into worried phone calls from my mom. Penelope was stressed. Penelope was struggling. The bills were piling up. The coaching was not covering her expenses. She might have to, God forbid, get a real job. My mom hinted broadly about maybe me giving Penelope some financial advice, or maybe even a small loan to tide her over. Just until the business picks up, you know. I politely but firmly shut it down each time. Mom, I am not a financial advisor. And I am not in a position to loan anyone money right now. Penelope is an adult. She needs to figure out her own finances. My mom would huff about me being unsupportive and cold-hearted. The situation escalated last month. I got a frantic call from my dad this time, which was rare. Roy is usually the silent enabler in this dynamic. He sounded panicked. Penelope was in serious trouble. Apparently, she had not just spent the $30,000 from them, but she had also racked up significant credit card debt trying to keep the failing business and her lifestyle afloat. She had also apparently borrowed money from friends, which she could not repay. She was facing eviction from her apartment and creditors were calling constantly. Dad said, "Chloe, we need your help. You are doing so well now with your fancy job and your house. We need you to help your sister. We cannot let her end up on the street." He explained that he and Mom had already drained their savings trying to prop Penelope up over the years, especially with the recent business funding, and covering her expenses when she was between her many jobs. They had remortgaged their own house years ago to help her with her master's degree costs and previous failed ventures. They were tapped out. Apparently, their constant funding of the golden child had left them financially vulnerable. Who could have predicted that? So there it was. After years of prioritizing Penelope, funding her every whim, enabling her irresponsibility, and neglecting me, they were now turning to me, the scapegoat, the afterthought, to bail out the golden child and implicitly themselves. Because her failure was now threatening their own financial stability and their image of the perfect family. I took a deep breath. Ethan was standing beside me, holding my hand, giving me a look that said, "Stay strong." "Dad," I started, my voice surprisingly steady, "I am sorry to hear Penelope is having difficulties. I truly am, but I cannot help her financially." My dad sputtered. "What do you mean you cannot help? She is your sister. We are your family. We need you after everything we have done for you. I cut him off, gently but firmly. Dad, what exactly have you done for me? You paid for Penelope's entire education, her car, her apartments, her failed businesses. You offered me $2,000 as a loan with interest when I was buying my house. I worked my way through university. I built my career on my own. I bought my house with Ethan on our own. I learned to stand on my own 2 feet, remember? Just like you always told me I needed to. He was silent for a moment, probably stunned that I was actually saying this out loud. Then he tried a different tactic. Chloe, this is not about the past. This is about now. Your sister is in desperate need. Are you really going to turn your back on her? On us? I replied, it is not about turning my back, Dad. It is about boundaries. It is about consequences. Penelope has made choices, and frankly, so have you and Mom by enabling her for so long. I cannot keep pouring energy or resources into a dynamic that has consistently hurt me. I need to protect myself and my own family now, the one Ethan and I are building. My finances are my own, earned through hard work you never fully acknowledged or supported. They are not a family emergency fund for Penelope's mistakes. He started yelling then, calling me selfish, ungrateful, cold-hearted, a terrible daughter and sister. He said I would regret this, that I was tearing the family apart. I did not yell back. I just said, I am sorry you feel that way, Dad. But my decision is final. I suggest Penelope look into resources like credit counseling and perhaps finding a steady job. I have to go now, and I hung up. It felt incredibly liberating, and also sad. Liberating because I finally stood up for myself, unequivocally. Sad because it confirmed that my parents' love and support were, and likely always would be, conditional and transactional, primarily reserved for Penelope unless they needed something from me. Since that call a few weeks ago, I have received a barrage of texts and voicemails from both parents and Penelope. Guilt trips, accusations, sob stories, demands. Penelope even sent one saying, I cannot believe you would abandon me like this. I always thought you looked up to me. It was almost comical in its lack of self-awareness. I have not responded to any of them. Ethan and I discussed it, and we agreed that engaging would just drag me back into the toxic cycle. I have blocked their numbers for now to give myself some peace. I know they are probably telling everyone in the extended family what a horrible person I am. I am prepared for that. I am prepared for the potential fallout. But honestly, the peace I feel right now, the sense of freedom, is worth it. I'm focusing on my life with Ethan, my career, my friends, my hard-earned home. But there is still a tiny voice in the back of my head, likely programmed by years of conditioning, that whispers, are you sure? Are you being too harsh? Are they right? Am I the asshole for refusing to bail out my golden child sister and enabling parents after a lifetime of being treated like the lesser child? So Reddit, tell me AITH, update 1. Wow, okay. I honestly did not expect this post to get so much attention. Thank you all so much for your comments, awards, and messages. Reading through hundreds, maybe thousands, of replies validating my feelings and sharing similar experiences has been incredibly therapeutic. Seriously, I spent hours reading them with Ethan, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing, mostly just feeling seen. For everyone who said I am not the asshole, thank you. It means more than you know. And for those who shared their own golden child scapegoat stories, my heart goes out to you. It is a tough club to be in. So what happened next? Well, the immediate aftermath of me refusing to fund the Penelope rescue mission was pretty much what I expected. The blocked numbers meant the direct calls stopped, but that did not deter them entirely. My mom tried emailing me multiple times. The subject lines ranged from urgent family matter to I am so disappointed in you. The emails themselves were a masterclass in manipulation. Lots of talk about how Penelope was falling apart, how she was barely eating, how it was breaking their hearts to see her suffer. Interspersed with digs about how I always had a selfish streak and how my success had clearly gone to my head and made me forget the meaning of family. There was even a bizarre paragraph suggesting that maybe Ethan was influencing me to be so cold. Right, because a woman cannot possibly set boundaries on her own. Ethan just rolled his eyes when I showed him that part. Penelope also tried emailing. Hers were less manipulative and more pathetic, honestly. Mostly blaming everyone else for her problems, the economy, bad luck, unsupportive friends, wonder who she meant there, and of course me, for not stepping up like a good sister should. She detailed her debts and problems as if listing them would magically make me change my mind and open my wallet. There was zero self-reflection, Zero acknowledgement of her own role in the situation. I did not reply to any of the emails. Following the advice of many commenters here, I just archived them. Engaging would be pointless. My aunt, my mom's sister, called me about a week after my post. She is generally a kind person but definitely gets caught in the middle. She sounded uncomfortable. She said Mom had called her crying, saying I had abandoned the family. My aunt gently probed, asking if there was any way I could help Penelope, maybe not financially, but perhaps help her find a job or offer emotional support. I appreciated my aunt's attempt at mediation, but I stood firm. I explained calmly that years of disparity and enabling had led to this point, and while I felt bad that Penelope was struggling, I could not be the solution. I told her that offering emotional support right now would likely just open the door to more demands and manipulation, and I needed to protect my own mental health. I also mentioned that Penelope had burned bridges with me long before this current crisis. My aunt seemed to understand, or at least accept, my position. She sighed and said she hoped things would eventually get better. I told her I hoped so too, but I was not holding my breath. Physically, I feel lighter. Like a weight I did not fully realize I was carrying has been lifted. Emotionally, it is still a bit of a roller coaster, but the overwhelming feeling is relief. Ethan has been amazing, constantly reminding me that I did the right thing and that my peace matters. We have been focusing on positive things, enjoying our home, spending time with supportive friends. I am still in therapy and working through the complex grief and anger that comes with acknowledging the reality of my family dynamic. Thank you again, Reddit, for being a surprising source of strength in all this. Update 2. Hello again, Reddit. It has been about 4 months since my last update, so probably around 10 months since the initial phone call where I refused to bail out Penelope. The response to my original post and first update continued to be incredibly supportive, and I cannot thank you all enough. It really helped solidify my resolve during moments of doubt. So, what is new? Well, the radio silence from my side continued. I maintained no contact with my parents and Penelope, no replies to emails, no answering calls from unknown numbers. It was hard, especially around holidays and my mom's birthday, but I knew it was necessary for my own well-being. The constant guilt trips and emotional blackmail had stopped, and the peace was palpable. I heard through my aunt again, our reluctant family messenger, that Penelope did eventually get evicted from her apartment. Apparently, my parents managed to scrape together enough money to put her things in storage, and she moved into their spare room. So, she did not end up on the streets, as my dad dramatically predicted. She is now a 30-year-old woman with a failed business and significant debt, living back home with Mom and Dad. The irony is not lost on me. The golden child, who was supposed to be so successful and independent, with their constant financial backing, of course, ended up right back where she started, while the scapegoat who was told to stand on her own 2 feet actually did. According to my aunt, the atmosphere at my parents' house is incredibly tense. Penelope is reportedly depressed and resentful, blaming everyone but herself. My parents are stressed, financially strained, and apparently walking on eggshells around Penelope. My mom apparently oscillates between coddling Penelope and having shouting matches with her about getting a job. Any job. It sounds like a nightmare, honestly. A nightmare they largely created, but still. Did they try to reach out again? Yes. About 2 months ago, my mom sent another email. This one was different, less accusatory, more weary. She talked about how hard things were, how worried she was about Penelope's mental state, how she missed me and wished things were different between us. She even included a tentative, half-hearted apology, something along the lines of, "I know we might not have always done things perfectly, but we always loved you both." It was the closest thing to an admission of fault I have ever received from her. I discussed it with Ethan and my therapist. Was this a genuine crack in the facade, an opening for reconciliation? Or just another manipulation tactic born out of desperation? My therapist advised caution. She pointed out the apology was vague and still centered their feelings. "We loved you both," implying equal treatment, which was demonstrably false. She suggested that if I chose to respond, I should keep it brief and maintain my boundaries. After a lot of thought, I decided not to respond yet. It felt too soon. The wounds were still too fresh, and the core dynamic had not really changed. Penelope was still living off them, they were still enabling her, and the vague non-apology did not address the decades of favoritism and neglect. Maybe someday, but not now. There was a family wedding for a cousin this past summer. I knew my parents and Penelope would be there. Ethan and I debated going. Part of me wanted to show them I was thriving, unbothered. Another part dreaded the inevitable awkwardness and potential confrontation. In the end, we decided to attend, but with a strategy. We arrived just before the ceremony, sat with other relatives, kept conversations polite and brief, focused on celebrating the happy couple, and left shortly after the dinner. We did have a brief, unavoidable interaction with my parents near the gift table. My mom looked tired. My dad looked awkward. Penelope was not with them at that moment. My mom said, "Chloe, you look well." I replied, "Thank you, Mom." "You too, congratulations to cousin Sarah." My dad just nodded stiffly. Then my mom added, "We miss you. It would be nice if you called sometime." I just gave a small, non-committal smile and said, "We should get back to our table." Ethan guided me away smoothly. It was uncomfortable but manageable. We did not see Penelope up close, though I caught sight of her across the room later. She looked diminished, not the usual radiant golden child. Life on my end continues to be good. My career is going well. Ethan and I are planning a big trip for next year, and we are enjoying making our house a home. The distance from my family of origin has allowed me to build a stronger sense of self. I still feel pangs of sadness sometimes for the family I wish I had, but mostly I feel relief and a growing sense of peace. Progress, right? Thanks for listening, Reddit. Update 3. Hi everyone. It feels surreal to be writing a third update. It has now been well over a year since my original post, probably closer to 18 months since the big refusal phone call. Time flies when you are not embroiled in constant family drama, I guess. Once again, thank you for all the continued support and messages over time. Knowing so many people understood has been a huge part of my healing process. So, the final chapter, at least for now. Life has continued its positive trajectory for Ethan and me. Our big trip was amazing, my career continues to advance, and our home feels more like a sanctuary than ever. Most importantly, the peace I fought so hard for has remained. What about the family situation? Well, things have definitely shifted, though perhaps not in the dramatic way some might expect. Penelope is still living with my parents. According to my aunt, who remains my main, albeit infrequent, source of news, she did eventually get a part-time job in retail. It is apparently far below her perceived station and qualifications, and she complains about it constantly, but it is a job. She is reportedly making minimal payments on her debts, though my parents are likely still subsidizing her heavily. The coaching website is defunct, the influencer dream seemingly abandoned for now. There has been no miraculous turnaround, no sudden onset of responsibility, but maybe, just maybe, a tiny crack of reality is seeping in. My parents, they seem to have reached a state of weary resignation. The frantic attempts to contact me stopped completely after that brief encounter at the wedding last summer. My aunt mentioned that they rarely bring me up anymore. Maybe they finally accepted my boundaries, or maybe they are just too consumed by dealing with Penelope's ongoing presence and issues. Then, something unexpected happened about 2 months ago. I received a letter in the mail. A physical letter, it was from my mom. No email this time. I almost did not open it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a handwritten card. It was not long. She wrote that she had been doing a lot of thinking over the past year. She acknowledged that she and Dad had made mistakes in how they raised Penelope and me. She specifically used the word favoritism. She admitted they had put too much pressure on Penelope to be perfect and had not given me the support or recognition I deserved. She wrote that seeing Penelope struggle and seeing me thrive independently had forced her to confront some uncomfortable truths. She said she was sorry. Not a vague sorry, but sorry for the specific ways they had hurt me over the years. She did not ask for anything. She did not make excuses. She simply said she loved me, regretted the past, and hoped that maybe, someday, we could have some kind of relationship again on my terms. I cried when I read it. Not tears of rage this time, but tears of something complex. Relief, sadness, validation. It felt like the first truly genuine thing she had said to me in years. I did not rush to respond. I sat with it for a few weeks. Talked it over extensively with Ethan and my therapist. This felt different from previous attempts. It felt like maybe, just maybe, there was a glimmer of real change, at least from my mom. My dad did not cuss in the letter, which is telling in itself, but maybe he is getting there too in his own way. Last week, I sent my mom a short email. I acknowledged receiving her letter and thanked her for her honesty. I told her I appreciated her apology. I said that I was not ready for full reconciliation yet, but that I might be open to meeting for coffee sometime in the near future, just her and me. She replied almost immediately, saying she understood and would be happy to meet whenever I was ready. So that is where things stand. No magical reunion, no instant forgiveness. Penelope is still Penelope, living with the consequences of her and my parents' choices. My relationship with my dad is still non-existent, but there is a potential opening with my mom, a small one. Cautious optimism is maybe the best way to describe how I feel about it. Regardless of what happens with my family, the main thing is that I am okay. More than okay, actually. I'm happy, healthy, successful on my own terms, and surrounded by love from Ethan and my chosen family of friends. I broke the cycle, I stood up for myself, I reclaimed my life, and that is the best positive outcome I could have asked for. So, looking back, was I the asshole for refusing to bail them out? Based on the peace and happiness I have found since then, and the validation from thousands of strangers on the internet, thank you, I am going to definitively say no. Not the asshole, not even close. Thank you all for coming on this journey with me. What would you do in my situation now regarding meeting my mom? Still curious to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.